Heyo, busy brain. Welcome to the Busy Brained Saint podcast, where faith meets focus. I'm Kamden, an expert ADHD coach, here to help you understand your mind with confidence. God knows your brain perfectly, so let's explore that divine design together and discover just how fulfilling your life can be, living with God and ADHD. Hello, you made it. I'm so happy that you are here. My brain is busy and my heart is full. Today's podcast episode is titled More Than Just a Worrywart. As I was waiting for some things to generate on my computer and pull up, I hopped onto my phone and I found, I'm following, I guess, the Academy. And there's a movie that came out in 2021 called CODA. And from what I gather from this short scene, there's a daughter who is hearing and a mother who is deaf. And the daughter is sitting on the bed and she looks at her mom who comes in and she signs to her, "Do you ever wish that I was deaf?" And the mom very sweetly comes, sits at the edge of her bed and tells her the story of the day that she was born. And how when the doctors were about to do the hearing test for her, she said she was praying that she would be deaf. And the daughter asks, "Why would you pray for that?" And then the mom starts to describe her fears and her anxieties. She signs to her, "I thought that we would fail you as a parent. I thought that you'd be angry at us because we wouldn't be able to serve you in the same way that hearing parents were," etc. And she kind of pours out her heart that most of the reasons why she was praying her daughter would be deaf had to do with her and her experience and her own insecurities. And the teenage daughter on the bed, at which point starts signing back and says, "Oh, don't worry, you're a failure for being a mom for so many different reasons, but not those," which I thought was really cute. And I share that because I already had this fantastic episode planned out today about being an over worrywart, and that it's not just that we're worrywarts. It's not just that we are naturally prone to anxiety. It's sometimes that we mismanage where we put our attention and our expectations of ourselves and of our children. And so today, that's what I would like to talk about. And if you haven't listened to the episode about constraint with the bowling alley, you can go back to listen to that one as well. But we're going to talk a little bit about it using that analogy again today, but just a little bit. So when we look at other people's lives, whether you're a parent and you have children, maybe it's a spouse or a sibling or a parent of our own, we assume that the experiences that they are having are similar to what we've gone through in our life, and that they had the same feelings and experience in their own doings as we did. So, it's the first week of school here in Utah last week, and the first day of 8th grade, 7th grade, 5th grade, and another preschool year for my young one. And if I look at my 8th grade year, I can't really remember too much, but I remember feeling like I was head of campus. I'd been there since 6th grade. It felt good to be an 8th grader. I kind of had the stuff down by that point. 9th grade was in our high school. And so this was like, queen of the campus type of feeling. I do remember that. I remember feeling more confident about this year, and but still not having a really strong group of friends, still feeling pretty left out, and a variety of different things. And if I assume that my experience with 8th grade is going to be the exact same experience as my oldest daughter who's going into 8th grade, then I'm going to start to wittingly start to be very nervous about her not having a good group of friends, or maybe getting overconfident or being a little bit arrogant toward the 7th and 6th graders at the school, etc. But that's just not the case. Her lived experience is so much different than mine. Maybe there are things that she's afraid of that I never was afraid of. And so if I am only in my own schema and in my own story, I might lose out on opportunities to hear what is hard and scary for her, and to really hear ways that I might be able to support her Whereas I wouldn't have thought of those things because they weren't areas in my life that I felt like I needed support, where I needed support. So we get to decide when we do this well, and I am not the expert on this, but I am in the middle of it, and I am trying my darndest to approach this time healthily, and I am not putting my indicator on if I'm doing this healthily or not based upon my daughter's responses, but rather how I handle the situations. She's going to do what she's going to do, and I'm going to mother her. And I often like to say my husband and I are parenting our face off. We're doing our very best job to parent. But if I bring my own anxiety and anxious energy, or I dismiss, what she's saying, and I bring that into the energy of our relationship, neither one of those is going to be great. So the question that I operate off of is, what is a healthier way to approach them living their own life? Especially at these teenage years. I have a 4-year-old that's not even a kindergartner yet. She's going to be turning 5 soon. And then I have these 2 teenage girls, tweens. One of them just entered teenagehood. And they are starting to find more independence and able to finally describe what it is that they are feeling to me in a way that helps me understand how to support them better. And at the same time, they've been little kids for so long that now I'm having to shift my perspective on how it is that I support them. It used to be maybe that I did the thing for them, and now I have to trust that they can do it and that I'm there now to support them no matter what happens, come what may, right? And that transition could be really helpful if we do it more proactively. Now, I will say with ADHD, we have this tendency to swing the pendulum from one side to the other. And okay, fine. I used to pick up your room for you. Now I'm not going to pick it up at all. Well, what in life is black and white like that? We all have transitional periods. So being more honest with ourselves about how we're going to support you in this transition and how I'm going to gradually release my support, it's going to be really helpful for you. But before we even make that distinction, just saying, I think we're at a transitional period, and I'm going to be more open and curious as to how I can shift my experiences and remind myself that this isn't my life to live. I already had my first day of 8th grade. Now it's your turn to have that. Okay. I think because I do struggle with this, I'm a little bit onto myself. I understand what my own struggles are, and so I've seen some patterns. And I also work with a lot of parents that even parents of young adults are feeling this as well, especially if they're living at home still. And I'd like to share a little bit of context that comes up in the story, and I've talked a little bit about it. When we adopted my daughter, my oldest, who's going into 8th grade, or is in 8th grade now, it was an open adoption. And my daughter's birth mom and I served our missions together, and we were good friends afterward. We enjoyed getting together every so often and spending time together. I played softball with them. She would come to some of the guitar nights that I had, and we'd, see each other at mission reunions, etc. And so when she had an unplanned pregnancy, I felt like it was such a good match, such a good fit, because I knew her parents and her siblings from playing softball. We had known each other in like a really trustworthy environment, such as the mission, and we knew each other just enough that we considered each other very good friends, but not so much that it was too close, like we were going to ruin or not be able to have a relationship, or that it would make it very, very complicated. And so I remember when we adopted my daughter that it was probably a few weeks in, and I was still trying to straddle not being her mom and being her mom, because Kelly had been pregnant for 9 months, And I didn't want to all of a sudden like take this baby and say, now I'm her mom, you aren't. That felt completely out of alignment. But I hadn't, with the exception of my adult cousin, who we learned was adopted later, and had an open adoption with my aunt later on. With the exception of that, I hadn't seen how an open adoption works. And there weren't really books to read about like stages that you could go through, or I didn't have support from a therapist that was familiar with open adoption. And so I didn't know how to 100% be her mom, because I was trying to split this thing 50-50. Kelly had her for 9 months inside of her and, in utero. And then she gave her to me, and I had only had her for a few days. And yet I was it, right? Like it was me and my husband, and we were her parents. We were waking up with her every night. We were feeding her, changing her diapers. We were kissing on her and loving on her and doing all the things, changing her clothes. And it was a pretty abrupt transition. I also remember at that time I was in really good shape. So we had been running. I had been really working on my nutrition, and I was grateful for that because it helped. But now that I've been pregnant, there's this transition of like, I have been with this baby for 9 months inside, and I'm ready for this baby to be on the outside, and I'm exhausted, and I haven't, and I had 3 C-sections after my oldest. And so like, I'm kind of down. Like, I'm not going to be going running right now. And I have kind of different expectations for what healthy living looks like right now. And so the very idea of giving birth, and for me, massive surgery, was forcing me to sit with this baby. And, I was breastfeeding. And so that forced that as well. And this was different because Tyler could feed our oldest as well. My husband could. And there was just a lot of interesting transitions that I had thought through cognitively, but was less aware of emotionally. Where the story is leading is to a moment where I was very overwhelmed with having to split this name of mom. And it hadn't occurred to me that both of us could 100% be mom. That Kelly would always be, and had to be, and got to be Brielle's 100% birth mom. And I didn't know like that could actually grow and evolve into a thing that was more than just giving birth. I trusted it might, but I didn't have the evidence of it. So it was hard for me to understand and see. And that me showing up as 100% adoptive mom and mom, 100% mom to her, didn't diminish Kelly's 100% momness. And so my friend was was the darkest, hardest point in her life. And on one hand, I felt kind of responsible for that. But I also had to step in, and I had to be joyful. Like, it would have been hard if I didn't have joy. And I understand that some moms don't, but with my next 3 biological kids, like, they got a mom who was so excited to meet them. And that's what my oldest deserves too, is a mom that even though she's tired and even though she's inconvenienced, that she's signed up for the job, and that she's excited and blessed and just in awe of this sweet creature, this little person that's in front of them. And I was having a hard time getting to that 100% because I felt like if I did, then it would deny Kelly of all of her work. I wish I could have found life coaching and therapy before that. I think I just needed to learn from that experience too. And this is what I guess I bring to that story, is that I can be 100% of her mom. And that was the That was the prompting I got. That was the whispering in my head is, if you don't show up right now as her mom 100%, who will? Like, what other mom does she have, Kamden? You're it. Kelly's not going to be here. That was the contract. That's what you guys signed up for. Like, she's relying upon you to be her 100% mom, even if she can't say that to you right now. It's not her job to, but you've got to choose in 100%. You have to. And so now when I see my daughter, and she is different than my other biological daughters in the fact that she's half black, that she's adopted, and my other daughters, my other three, are biological. She's different, that she's tall and has locks for hair, and dark, beautiful eyes, and that she has a different rhythm to her personality as well. And that looks very contrasted in our family. So there's just a lot of ways, and all of my daughters are different. In some ways, it's like uncanny how they're the same too, and how similar she is to me even, in many ways. But there's a lot of things that we can point to that are different about her experience. And a lot of my anxiety as a mom with all of my kids comes from how I compare my lived experience to how they're living their life. We have to make legitimate choices in our life to not compare our life to theirs, to not assume that what was hard for us is all of a sudden going to be hard for them. Because they get a right to own their own first days and to own their own story. Going back to this story of my adopted daughter, she only has this life. And everything that she tells about her story is hers. I had two biological parents who were married, who both raised me in my home, and all of my siblings were biological. And when I treat either my three biological daughters or my adopted daughter, all my daughters, when I treat each one of them as less than or even more than what I had, I'm making some assumptions that may be very incorrect. What's more true is that we all show up with our life. My oldest daughter gets her life. Her life happens to involve maybe some more layers to navigate than I did when it comes to biology and race and parenthood and who her parents were and what her family tree looks like. It involves a few more layers than mine. And that doesn't mean anything greater or less than, it just is. But if I look at that and I say, hey, your life is more complicated and I have more grief and that must be harder for you, and I assume that it's harder, I'm fueling it with my anxiety. Now there's a difference. Like, I'm not going to not tell her the truth. Like, if there's complications and there's things that are hard about it, I'm going to be there to support her and to hear her out. But I don't have to bring my own anxieties of her life being different than mine to her story. The same way when I look at my three biological daughters and I say, wow, you were raised with a sister, an oldest sister, who has a very strong personality, who is adopted, who gets double presents on her birthday and gets to go out with her birth mom and, whatever else comes up, right? I don't get to look at them and say, oh, poor babies, like you guys don't have it as good as your sister. Or, oh, well, I was never raised with an oldest sister who was adopted, so that must be so much more complicated for you guys, right? I'm making assumptions based upon the only life they've ever lived. And I'm fueling that fire that may have never even been inside of them in the first place. You could look back on my life, the oldest of 7 kids, and you might say, wow, your parents did such a great job. Financially, though, it was kind of hard. It was pretty tight most of the time. That must have been really hard. And for me, I can say, I guess. And also, like, we figured it out. And I wouldn't say, one way or another. It was just what it was. And so we don't need to take whatever we are worried about and assume that our kids are having the same experience. What they're experiencing is all they've ever known. This is their life. And so when we have ADHD and we are looking at all the possibilities of what could go wrong or right in their life, and we find that our anxiety, that limbic brain, is wanting to really hone in on the difficult things, the parts of our catastrophizing and our future spinning and our spiraling in our mind that say that things are going to go wrong. Most of the time, that's based upon our own experience. And we have either one, we've grown from that experience already, and so we're kind of a different person than when we went through the experience in the first place. Or number 2, like I've been mentioning this whole time, this experience is not the same as it was in the past. It's different in and of itself. It has different moving pieces. I'm celebrating 25 years of knowing some of my best friends, the people that I met my first year at BYU at Deseret Towers, V Hall, 2nd floor. We met about this week 25 years ago. And I was reflecting upon what a different experience that was. No cell phones, hardly had instant messenger. Most of us had a computer. Some of us were renting it from the school. But it wasn't normal for people to own their own computers. Definitely not laptops. We had calling cards to call home. And we just raw dogged it. We just went door to door in the dorms and they're like, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Kamden. I'm from San Diego. Where are you from? What's your name? Right? Looking people in the whites of their eyes and awkwardly getting to know each other. There weren't phones. There wasn't those kind of distractions. And that's very different than the lived experience of if my kids choose to go to college, what that will be for them. And that doesn't mean that I have to be anxious for them because it was different than me. They just need to know that you are there to support them. And it doesn't mean we have to be ignorant about, what they have to go through or completely pull ourselves away. But I think it's helpful for us to know that when our brain spirals about all these other things that they're just kind of not concerned about, sometimes they might be telling us something that maybe we just don't need to worry about it because it's not our problem to solve. They are going to have to navigate their own life. When we get to this teenage stage and we have all of these strings or cords, attached to our children, and we've been doing a lot for them, or we've been modeling behavior for years with them of how to act or how to clean or, whatever skill we could focus on, how to make friends. And then all of a sudden they get older and they grow and you're like, oh my gosh, I think I might be able to cut this string a little bit or, yank this string and you can take this one on your own. You don't need me. I'll always be here to support you, but it looks like you can do this on your own. That might be a little bit of grief for you that you're going to have to feel, that you're moving on, a little bit of sadness. And the sadness might be compounded with fear of, can they do it on their own? But you remember helping your kids or people ride a bike. You have your hand on that seat behind them and you're running down the street with them until you see, whoa, I think you got it. I'm going to let go. And then they keep pedaling and they keep pedaling and they're going straight and they're able to ride their bike on their own so much more stably. With so much more stability than even when we were holding and running beside them. And that transition of letting them learn how to get their pant leg unstuck from the chain and with all the grease on it, and having them learn what happens when the chain falls off or the tire gets flat or they fall down and scrape their knee or whatever it is, that's part of their story now. Like they are allowed, they get the permission to tell that story. And with ADHD, we don't see that any of that is separate. We just see it all at once and here and now. At whatever time it says on your watch and whatever date it is that you're listening to this, your brain says we have to solve for all of these things, including the ones that will happen possibly, maybe 10 years down the line. So then we get very overwhelmed. But they were never our problems to solve for in the first place. Getting clear on what your purpose is as a parent, as a loved one, as a provider, as a partner, getting really clear on that for yourself, on the value, is going to help you direct yourself in the face of actual decisions. What do I do when my child doesn't make the volleyball team? What do I do when she decides to study really hard and she still gets a grade that is not okay with her or him? Sorry, I only have daughters. What do I do when one of my children gets into the school play and the other does not? It's not that we just don't do something. We don't ignore it. That's not what I'm offering to you. But we don't have to solve for all of those problems until they are in our bowling lane. Once those pins are up in front of us, now we can solve for those. And you know how we know we're going to be okay? It's because we're very capable humans. And because we've taken all the other years of constraining to what's in front of us, and we've gained wisdom and learning, and we're really clear on what kind of parent we want to be. And we're good at implementing love, and we're good at thinking on our feet. And when we can start to trust that that future version of ourselves has our back so much better than the anxious self thinks they do or thinks they need to, then we can let go of things that are outside of our control. And this is when I remember more than ever that this is their life to live. This is the story they get to do. I'm not here to decide what their fears and anxieties and successes are. They get to decide that for themselves, and they can do it with a mom that they knew loves them and holds them and isn't afraid of what they're going through, because she or he, we've been through enough of life that come what may, we'll be able to figure it out with them. That time holding my newborn oldest daughter after adoption and deciding that no one else would get to live the life as an adoptive mom of her, so her mother. No one else was going to step in. It was almost like I was letting go of the string that I had attached, not on purpose, not purposely, to Kelly, to her birth mom. I had attached it somehow to her. And when I was able to cut that and just focus on, this is my life, this is my mission, and this is in return my daughter's life, to have me as her mother 100%, I felt the freedom of being able to be fully me and fully present. And that's the gift that we give to our loved ones when we stop trying to manage their emotions, when we stop trying to pre-decide they should be worried about something. And I know that this is tricky because there are things that our kids need help with, right? Like, oh, you're probably going to want to bring a water bottle to practice. It's 80 degrees outside, right? Let me give that to you. And there might be a time that we're not able to see that and they aren't. And so then they don't have water, and hopefully that helps them remember the next time or whatever it is. with ADHD. Most of the time, that's not true. We have to have it set it out in a system. We're not supposed to be hands off, right? We're not going to swing the pendulum from one side of, oh, I've been helping them 100% to like, I help them not at all. That would be be whiplash, right? We're not here for that. This gradual release and trust that when things come, we'll know how to navigate them, and that at certain parts in our child's lives, it's okay to let go. Now, just for a moment, I want to tie this to partnerships and relationships, because a lot of the time, my husband and I will be married 19 years this year. And that means we've had a lot of dynamics in our marriage so far. Not as many as some people, but also I wouldn't say 19 years is a little bit of time. It's a significant amount of time to have lived and developed a life with someone. And we've created dynamics that we're still trying to improve. And one of those is that my husband dislikes conflict. And it's not like I like it, but I'm kind of a more go at it and get it done and take care of it type of person. More proactive, I guess. And for a long time, we were kind of we knew that about each other. And so we were trying to keep tabs on each other's emotions that way. Like, okay, fine, I'll give in and Kamden will get the thing done. Or, okay, I won't push too hard because I know that Tyler doesn't like conflict. And ever since we started to just let go a little bit more and cut ourselves free of all of those cords that kind of yanked us around and didn't allow us to be in our freest, most honest and authentic and powerful self. Since we've done that more often, we're happier and our home operates better, because now I trust that he can take care of himself, that he has tools and he can manage his emotions, and that I can just focus on what's my responsibility. And he does the same thing for me. And so he says, Kamden gets one life. And so I've got to let her live her life. And and I'm so grateful she lets me live my life. And then we choose each other as we're living these lives. Like, we choose to make that life together, but not trying to manage the other person or manipulate them to make things easier for us, but to trust that us, independent of each other, choose to make a context that is new and fresh and even stronger. And so if you can see that in marriage, if you can see that in, I love sports like doubles tennis, or I'm a 90s kid, so the bobsled team from Cool Runnings, when they were working all together with each knowing their job, coaching each other and cheering each other on, but not managing each other, pre-deciding to not do something because the other person doesn't know how to manage this. And that was way outside of their wheelhouse and that took away from their responsibility on the team. You can see how much more growth there is when we trust that type of growth, when we trust that kind of mentality. And yes, it does need both sides, both parties, to make sure that they're stepping in and willing to take care of themselves and owning when we get a little bit indulgent in our emotions. So whether it's your child and you're indulging in your own anxieties to saying, I think you should bring X, Y, and Z, or I think you should try this at lunch this time, to manage you feeling better about your own trauma in your own life that you had in 8th grade. Whether it's that, or you're doing that in a partnership, or you're doing that at work, or you're doing that wherever it might be in a church calling, notice that ADHD is written in the threads and in the seams of this whole story. If we can see the bowling pins in front of us and what is actually being asked of us now and constrain apart from what our brain says we need to solve everything all at once and it's all on us to do it. Or for some of my clients, it's like, that's really hard. I'm going to avoid and go do something completely different, right? That's ADHD strong there too. So whether we feel the burden of having to do everything or the fear of having to do anything and we avoid, or the fear of having to do everything and we avoid and retreat, the answer is right in front of us. The answer is, what is in front of me that allows me to do my job in my lane and to not do the job of other people, to let them have their lives, their one life, and their development and progress on their own so they can take ownership of that. And I can take ownership of my own. So thank you for being with me today. And thank you to all of my wonderful clients that give me amazing opportunities to think these concepts through. And it's just always such a pleasure to articulate so much of the learning that goes on in our sessions. Now, I am looking to bring on a couple more one-on-one clients. It's the end of August right now. I'm pulling back in some ways, but I do have just 1 or 2 slots that have become available. So if you have ever considered having me as your ADHD coach, I'm working in a lot longer packages now, get to know you a little bit further, and we combine education as well as coaching during that transformation. So it is a beautiful work to help you get a hold of yourself in a way that is compassionate and honest and very effective. And if you have any interest in doing that, remember you can schedule a free mini session with me at KamdenADHDcoaching.com. Click on free mini session and we'll move forward from there. As always, I'm so grateful that you're with me. Thank you for your positive star reviews of this podcast and for sharing it with people that you love. Remember how much I love you, and I am always cheering you on. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Busy Brained Saint podcast. If you're eager to explore the world of ADHD coaching, make sure to connect with me on Instagram at Kamden_ADHD or visit my website, KamdenADHDcoaching.com. For more LDS-specific ADHD content, don't forget to follow this podcast and join us on Instagram at The Busy Brained Saint. Listen, I'm here to support you on your journey. I cannot wait to have you as a part of our community. Stay engaged, stay inspired, and remember, you're not alone here. Thanks for being a part of the Busy Brained Saint family.